Hi guys, my name is Mr. Sonnenberg. Today we're going to be talking about is communicable and non-communicable diseases, meaning that diseases that can be passed on from one organism to another and diseases that cannot be passed on. So this is for Science 24 students, and this is Unit 3 that we're studying, and this is disease defense, and this will be topic 1 throughout the unit, and we've got a good unit planned for you guys. So, first thing we need to talk about is what is a communicable disease? So, disease is something that's caused by a microbe known as a pathogen, and we have another screencast that's going to actually discuss pathogens in more detail: viruses, bacteria, and such, fungi. And so you can view that to better understand what's going on. But what a communicable disease is, it's meaning that we can spread from one organism to another. And there's a variety of ways we can do that. But if we take a look over here at some of the examples, we can see things such as the flu, the common cold, AIDS, SARS, and smallpox. And smallpox is actually the most lethal communicable disease known to in human history. And so, like I said, this is one thing that's passed on from one organism to another. But what we kind of look at here is SARS as well, and we're doing a little bit of a case study on SARS, which was an incident that occurred in Ontario, in Toronto, and this happened a few years, or quite a few years back. But what happened was it was a communicable disease, so it was spread from one person to another. And we'll discuss throughout the screencasts how SARS is played, and then later in the unit we're actually going to look at some other communicable diseases and pathogens that were passed along, and maybe some epidemics or pandemics that have occurred, and you'll have to research that. So, moving on. So, communicable diseases, how do we spread, or how do they spread? What are the effects and symptoms and such that we can see? So, we'll notice that there are 4 ways that we're going to discuss. So, one right here, okay, is airborne. So, basically, you can spread through coughing and sneezing. And so we'll see it through our nose, kind of in our throat, and then in our lungs, okay? So some of the effects, you'll see a runny nose, you'll see a sore throat and a cough, so things like the cold and the flu, and then we can pass those on. Those are actually contagious, and they're communicable diseases. So the second thing we'll discuss is waterborne. So if we have contaminated water, then we can pass on these communicable diseases as well. And sometimes we'll have bacteria in there, maybe from feces, and we can contaminate that water system. And so examples of that might be things in the pool, and that's why they have chlorine in the pool, is so that they can kill all these diseases and these pathogens so that they don't spread throughout the various populations and such. The third thing we'll talk about is carried in food. So unsafe food handling. I know my parents are in the restaurant business and such, and food handling business. So constant sanitation, keeping things clean, utensils, countertops, making sure food is stored properly and also kept at the appropriate temperature so that bacteria don't grow. As we know that bacteria and pathogens actually will grow with increased temperature. But if we don't store these things properly and we don't use proper methods for preservation of that food, then what's going to happen is we can pass along these bacteria and such, and then we would call that communicable diseases. And then the last is just direct contact. So if there's an infected person and we have direct contact with that person, what can actually happen is we can pass that communicable disease on. Okay, so the keys here is communicable disease means that we can pass it from one organism to another. I sneeze in your face, cough all over you, then what's going to happen is you potentially could get, if I was ill or I was a host and carrying that pathogen or that disease or whatnot, or else that flu, the cold, whatnot, you could get that, and all of a sudden now you could become infected with that as well. So what I would do is I would pause the screencast at this point, and I would just take a look at this chart and try to take a look at the various methods that these communicable diseases can spread, some common examples of each level at what type of bacteria that could be, and just see if you've ever heard of those things. And then also, what are the effects if you come across these communicable diseases? And it might give you, maybe some of you have had these things before. I know I've definitely had a cold, I've definitely had the flu and things, but I've never had botulism or salmonella or anything like that. So You might have come across some of these as well. So moving on, again, communicable diseases. So we know that they can spread by air, water, food, and contact. So the question is, why are we not sick all the time? Why are we not always ill? So, and really what we do in our personal environment is we sanitize. We keep things clean, right? We make sure we're cleaning our home. We make sure we're cleaning our floors. We make sure that we're cleaning ourselves. And we're making sure that we're handling maybe food. Maybe we're making sure that when we cough into our sleeve and we're not coughing all over everything. And it's nothing worse. I remember I taught elementary my first year, and I remember I had this student that he would cough or sneeze, but he'd look you right in the eyes and he'd all over you, and all I'd say is thanks. And I've never been so sick in my life that year with those little kids coughing and their boogers everywhere, and oh, it was awful. I tried to get them to wash their hands so much, but they were coughing all over the place. But I tried to keep the environment clean so not everybody got sick, right? So just some examples. We can filter our drinking water, right? We're not going to drink right from a lake. That's not advised. Um, we use things such as chlorine or antibacterial soaps. That kills the bacteria, right? And then also sometimes we wear gloves or we use protective clothing. We use masks so that we can ensure that these communicable diseases are not passed on. Now, the process of communicable disease is what happens is we're going to get this mode of transmission, and we can pass transmission, meaning how we pass it on from one person to another. And so if I was to come in transmission from another person and those little students sneeze in my face, cough in my face, and I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And it's all over me. And now what happens is now there's an entry. How is it going to enter my body? Is it going to go through my mouth? Am I going to inhale it? Is it going to be on my hands and then I'm going to touch my face? What's my mode of transition and how is it going to enter my body? Once it's in my body, it's going to find a susceptible host, which means it's going to find a host and it's going to cling to that host, and then that infectious agent is going to build. And bacteria and viruses and such, they're going to build quite quickly. And then what it does is it develops a reservoir, which is kind of a big storage area for that disease. And then what's our route of exit? So now if I had the flu, I'm probably going to get some antibiotics. And what's going to happen is they're going to say, take these antibiotics, 1 pill or 2 pills, once or twice a day for 2 weeks. Now what's going to happen in that first week, I'm going to feel really good. It's going to go away. I'm going to say, I'm back. And what we have to be careful of is sometimes these pathogens and these bacteria and viruses can build resistance. And if they build that resistance, it's because maybe the antibiotic that was supposed to kill that pathogen or that communicable disease, it does so, but it doesn't kill all of it. And we also have mutations sometimes. But what's going to happen is if it doesn't kill all of it, they say take it for the full 2 weeks, even though you feel better. So if you take it for the full 2 weeks, then you're going to make sure you kill almost all of those infectious agents, and you're going to kill that whole reservoir, and then it's going to exit your body. Okay, so that is communicable disease. It's how we pass it on. So there's various methods like we discussed that are going to force us to pass it along. Now, communicable diseases are a little bit different though. Okay, so the key thing here is they're not caused by pathogens. And I apologize if you hear a buzzer in the background. I'm drying my clothes. I got to do laundry. So they're not caused by pathogens, meaning that they're not passed on from one organism to another. So the cause of a non-communicable disease, it could arise by 2 things. 1, genetic factors, okay, and then 2, environmental conditions, okay. So maybe where you live or things that you're exposed to and such might actually cause these particular diseases, but they're not passed on. So if I cough in your face, that's not a non-communicable disease. That is communicable. Non-communicable, maybe genetically, it just occurs within you, and you can get this disease. So how does the non-communicable, or how do you get a non-communicable disease? I'm struggling with that word, I'm sorry. Non-communicable disease. Now, these are usually a result of bad environmental conditions. So things like poor diets. How would I get diabetes? Well, maybe due to obesity, inactivity, poor diet, and such. unhealthy lifestyles. Okay, so that's ways that we can get these. Also, genetics play a role in developing those non-communicable diseases. So those are your traits. Those are the genes that are passed on through generation to generation within your pedigree, within your family. Okay, and so sometimes we have hereditary traits that are passed on that can cause particular disease. Okay, so we'll learn more about that as we move through the unit as well. And then not all microbes, though, make us sick. So not all pathogens or microbes, these tiny microorganisms, not all of them make us sick. So really our body is covered in a sea of microbes, but there's both pathogens that make us sick, and then there's also good microbes, okay? And those are the ones that maybe protect us. And we don't know as much about them as we do about the pathogens that make us sick. But what we have here is a link, and it's from microbiologist Jonathan Eason. And what he does is he just kind of shares a little bit about what he knows, and surprising ways that to put those good microbes to work, and help protect our body. So I want you to take a look at that. Now, a reminder to you is that after this, there's going to be a Google form that will have a series of questions that you'll want to ask, and those are going to highlight the key points that we want you to take out of these screencasts throughout this unit, and that's going to be kind of the meat and potatoes or the rocks of this unit. Now, at any point when you're watching or viewing these screencasts, feel free to press pause, take a break, come back. The great thing about screencasting is you can play, pause, rewind, and if you have any questions, please, you can email your teachers. You can also you can bring your questions to class, and I'm more than willing to help you out. And I want to get good discussions going about this material, because all this material is actually very relevant to us every day. I actually currently have contracted a pathogen. I think I have a cold or whatnot. I'm not sure, but definitely not feeling that great. So anyways, take a look at this next link, view it, and then there are a series of questions that will be on your unit template that we've shared with you, and you can actually access the questions, complete them, submit them, and then we'll get the results back to you as soon as we can. Anyways, that's communicable and non-communicable diseases. Hopefully this has helped. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll see you on the next screencast. Okay, bye.